Hi everyone, I'm Jeanette Werman. Katie asked me to introduce myself to you as a member of the new steering group for the Emerging Kind project. I've really struggled to know what to say, and then a few days ago we had a screening of the Emerging Proud film and the Phil Borge film, and lots of good people came, good discussion, and at the end somebody came up to me and she said, "That was a really good meeting, but I don't know if I should have come because I don't have those experiences." And then yesterday a friend of mine came up and she said something similar. She said she has lots of experience of meditation and yoga and breath work, and she said Emerging Proud is great, but I don't know if I belong there. And I suddenly realised why I found it so difficult to know what to say about myself, because it sort of centres on that question of am I a peer? What is a peer? Who is a peer? So I want to tell you a bit about my life, just the path it's taken and the kind of experiences I've had and the context of those. I can't answer the question of whether I'm a peer or not, but at least it will give you a feel for who I am and why I'm keen to be part of Emerging Proud. So I want to start by telling you a dream I had as a child. It's very short. I'm in an empty room. There's a spiral staircase going up, and a man carries a shining sphere up the stairs. I think he's taken it away from me, but I can't remember. And he says, "Other than few who look for it, find it, and care for it, none can hold it." And I think that's what I've been doing all my life. I've been looking for that sphere. I've been lucky because I've had a choice about this, about whether to engage with certain practices or not. And I know lots of you haven't, and I think that's where the question of who is a peer, that's where it bites. I've had my share of conflict and trauma. I was sexually abused as an adult. I've been bulimic for a few years in the 80s. I had outpatient psychotherapy through the psychiatric services. And I did intensive meditation to try and kind of answer some of the questions I had, I suppose, and come to terms with some things. I did lots of meditation, sort of 3 hours a day. I got involved in holotropic breath work. I ended up training as a facilitator. Breath work and meditation triggered Kundalini, which now sometimes comes up spontaneously. During a year in the States, I worked with what are called entheogens, or psychedelics, in particular ayahuasca. That gave some of the most difficult experiences in my life. It sort of blew my sense of who I am and what reality is. And I was struggling with the question of was this real or was it just in my mind? In particular, some of the more frightening things that happened. And in the end, I decided I couldn't answer that question. But I found the writings of Carl Jung really helpful, his work on the shadow and the collective unconscious, Stan Grof's expanded view of the human psyche, and Ervin Laszlo's view of consciousness and reality. He talks of the Akashic field, which is a field of consciousness that everything that exists emerges out of and is part of. Of course, this looking for answers still continues. I wouldn't say I've got to the end of that. So eventually I had to come back to the UK. I had to work again. My money had run out. And I pushed back all that stuff, pushed it back down, and just lived a sort of normal life as much as I could. Until more recently, when I've started to re-engage with this kind of work. So I would say that I have had psychotic experiences, but they have been time limited, and I've chosen to have them by doing breath work or using psychedelics, or meditating, whereas other people have a whole layer of secondary trauma that I haven't had. So that's the diagnosis, medication, perhaps against your will, hospitalization. There's a whole trauma that is attached to that, and even people who choose to have medication because they need to for a while to cope, they then have side effects. So that's the area that I have no experience of. But I can tell you a little bit about the experiences that I've had using these sacred technologies. I won't say too much because it just the recording gets too long. But for instance, in breath work, feeling ripped apart by wolves, having my flesh packed off the bones by birds, being in my inner world, obviously not in reality, ritually abused, being crushed, using ayahuasca. I've experienced being entered by the spirit of a baby that my mother had aborted before I was born, and he needed me to know he had existed and feel his pain before he could move to the light. I was asked to witness some of the horrors of the Second World War, assisted by a life-size, a human-sized praying mantis. I had a sense of a black entity trying to push my soul out and take over my body. During times with Kundalini, I felt I was being fed on by a vampire, and I drank his blood. I had aliens work on my brain and change my DNA, and I was a hybrid, half human, half alien, and part of a group mind, and I felt that I was a portal between different realities, and beings from other realities were trying to enter this reality through me. All sorts of stuff like that, which, you know, if that gets to a psychiatrist, they would definitely diagnose that as psychotic, and having things implanted in me and that sort of thing. And I've always been driven by this deep longing to know, and again, in this state, I even bartered, a bit like Faust. I kind of gave my soul in return for being shown the reality of what exists and the meaning of our existence. I've also had blissful experiences. A really core experience was feeling part of out of my body in a field of consciousness that was light and love, and all wisdom was in it, all knowledge, and all of us were individually known and very precious to that field of consciousness. And when I came down, I asked, what should I do with this knowledge? And they said, all you need to do, all anybody needs to do, is reflect that light back in each other, so that all of us can come to know that we are ultimately that light. I know that my experiences are very different because I chose to have them from people who are flooded with that kind of material and they can't turn it off. And I can't imagine how frightening that is, and that would stop you functioning in ordinary life. And but I do think that the process is the same, the material is the same, and we can find meaning in it, and it is deeply healing. And that's why I am so committed to Emerging Proud. And I want us to make safe spaces for people to go through this experience and find meaning in it for themselves. And I want us to help change society so that it becomes more accepting of extreme experiences and feelings, and allows us to fully be and express all it means to be human. That's why I'm really grateful to be part of Emerging Proud, and I will do everything I can to help Katie and the steering group, and that's me. So thank you for listening, and yeah, lots of love. Bye.